Today in this video, we are going to show you how to make custom packaging for your laser projects. So in this case, we have a beautiful press kit ornament that we created, and we wanted some way to house that ornament when it's not being used, to protect it, but also give us an option to have an engraving space for customers to put custom messages as a gift. And so we came up with this idea for a very simple box that can be cut out using our Mira 9 AEON laser, and it can be also engraved. So come along with us as we make this and we'll explain each step. First, we're going to dive into Lightburn and we'll show you how we created the file for this project. Over how we set up our file in Lightroom to cut these custom ornament boxes. So first I started with just a piece of the ornament. This is one of the layers. I took this piece from the original Lightburn file, just pasted it in here. And this is what we started with to create the outline of Arizona for where the ornament is going to sit. And so we wanted it to have a little bit of wiggle room so that it can drop right into the box. But we also still want it tight enough that it's protected in the box when it's not being used. And then we also needed to keep in mind we would need room for a string, which is going to be hanging on the ornament. And so first what we did is we took this shape and we wanted to do an offset. And I decided on about 1/8 of an inch offset. And this is an outward offset. It's going to be round beveled, and I'm only doing the outer shape of Arizona. So that gives us basically the shape that we're going to cut out. And from there, we needed to create another shape for the string. So went ahead and used the pen tool. You can actually do this a few different ways. You could use shapes. You could use a rectangle with a circle on top and then weld those shapes together to get the shape that you want. You could use the pen tool and create an arced shape. You could do it all in one stroke, something like this, and then it's closed off. Or you could just do the one piece of the shape. You could copy that, reflect it, and then by selecting both, you can align them. And we'll zoom in and bring these together. And that way you know it's identical on each side. So we're going to grab the pencil tool again here so that we can complete this shape. So now we have one shape. Now this might not necessarily be ready to weld just yet. So first I was going to check, is this the size that I want? I'm kind of eyeballing it in here. We did it more mathematically when we originally made the box, but you could resize the shape to make it just what you need for the string, and then line it up. And the next step would be to weld these two shapes together. But let's see if it's going to allow us. So we select both. If you went to tools, weld, you'll see, it doesn't let you, or it would be Command W on the keyboard. Those should weld together, but they're not. And that's because this shape isn't completely all one shape. So that means there's a break somewhere in the shape, which just makes sense since we just joined two lines together. So to fix that, we would go to click the shape and go to Edit, Close Path. And then I also like to go to Close Selected Path with Tolerance. In this case, I want to move the ends together because it's not like a huge gap anywhere in the design. It's all pretty close. And now, if I select both shapes and go to Tools, you'll see that Weld is available. And that's also Command W on your keyboard. And so now we have the shape that our ornament would be sitting in when we cut it out. And I think ultimately we went with a little smaller than 1/8 of an inch. You can just tell that this one that I just created is a bit gappier. And so let's just compare. Yeah, it's a bit bigger. So you could play with this by cutting it out and trying. You just have to keep in mind the kerf of the machine is going to burn some of it, and the kerf alone could be enough, but it's likely that you need a little bit more on top of the kerf to drop the shape inside in a safe way that's not too snug. And so from here, we designed the box. We needed to be able to drop the ornament in and it be able to sit inside and have a lid without anything poking out and still protect the ornament. So what we did was we created two pieces that have a cutout of the Arizona. that will be stacked. And these are cutting out of a 1/4 inch wood, so that adds up to a 1/2 inch. And the ornament itself is also about a 1/2 inch thick. So that way I knew once we dropped the ornament in there, it'd be flush with the top of this cut. Then this piece here actually has dual purposes. This outer rectangle will get glued on the box right here, and it will hold the lid in place from sliding off. Then the inner rectangle is actually going to be used on the lid, the bottom side of the lid, and that's how it'll drop into its little mold and frame and not slide. And then this is the last piece, which is the backing, and we've gone ahead and put our logo on that. And then of course this is the top lid, and we have a custom engraving here. So this, creating our own packaging for an ornament, is really fun because it's going to protect the ornament. We can put any custom shape we want in here. So if it wasn't the shape of Arizona, it could be any shape you can think of to protect it. You just need to be offset just a hair so that it has somewhere to drop into place. And so this file we've got set up, we're going to be doing the teal color in an engraving. We do not use Air Assist for that. And then we have our cuts. And in this case, we're cutting out of 1/4 inch plywood, and I'm going to update these settings for that. That was actually the cutting settings we use for 1/8 of an inch. And so this file is ready to go over and send to the laser cutter. And what we'll do is we're going to keep it on current position, right hand corner, because we're going to line the laser up with the right hand corner of the wood and cut that way. And then just showing you, if you select this whole box, this is a single box, and we look at a preview, you can see that it takes about 9 minutes with this engraving. And we do have a pretty high line interval on the engraving to make it really crisp. So about 9 minutes per box. All right, it's time to load up the machine. You can see here Eric is loading our 1/4 inch pre-stained plywood into the machine, and he's going to line up the laser with the right hand corner like we talked about in Lightroom, and he's also auto-focusing the machine. He checks to make sure that the machine, the laser head is square with the piece of wood. And now we're going to go ahead and click frame in Lightburn here in a second so we can make sure our cut fits on the piece of wood. So you can see the laser head is moving. That's just showing us this is the portion of the wood that we're going to be cutting out, and it just fits. So we're going to be cutting 3 boxes. Now we're going to move on to engraving the material. So let's watch the machine run. So in Lightburn, we have it set up to engrave first. This is important because if you were to cut first, the material would drop down just a little bit as it cuts all the way through. And then that is going to adjust how much focus you have. So you just lost a little bit of the focus. It comes out of focus when the wood drops down because we focused it to the height of the wood at the beginning. And so that can sometimes make your engraving look a little blurry or funny. So it's important to do your engraving in Lightburn first, and then do your cuts. So you can see here, the custom engraving is in its process, and the laser kind of has a mind of its own, and it chooses what it likes to engrave first. Now we're going to cut the material. All right, let's do some cleanup and finishing of our ornament box. So what we all love is taking our pieces out of the machine and they're nice and crisp. Now on this specific project, we had a little bit of an issue because this plywood, and anytime you work with plywood, has glue pockets in it. And it really depends on the quality of the plywood, but ultimately it's multiple layers glued together. And in that scenario, we had one piece that had a very large glue pocket, and it won't cut evenly if it hits a glue pocket. So you'll see that we take an X-Acto knife and we just help it along on the one spot where it's stuck, and it will come out. So here I'm sanding with an 800 grit sandpaper. I'm not wanting to take the stain off, but I also want to just smooth everything out after being in the laser. and make sure there's no harsh edges, which it came out pretty crisp and beautiful. So one thing that we do with our engravings on pre-stained wood is that we actually go over the engraving one more time with the exact stain that we used to begin with. So you can see here I use a sponge brush and I fill the engraving with stain. I almost kind of dab it into the engraving so it really gets in there good. And then I immediately wipe it off. And then that way the stain stays inside the engraving and dries, and we don't leave any marks on around the engraving itself. So you can see I'm filling all of my engravings there. So once those are dry, I'm ready to glue my box together. And so I got all of my pieces. And first I'm going to start with the piece that's for the top of the lid. So I'm going to put, this is CA glue, and I put just a medium amount of glue, line up my lid along with the little rectangle frame, which isn't being glued on, but I'm using it to help me align the lid. And I'm going to put a weight on there to help it set. And now I'm going to glue my Arizona pieces. And again, just a medium amount of glue. I'm going to line it up with all of the edges of the bottom of the box. So I'm just kind of tweaking it to make sure it's aligned. You have a little wiggle room time with this glue, which is really great. It does also have an accelerator you can use, but in this case we need that extra time to make sure that the edges are all aligned before it sets. So I'm going to do that same process with the next Arizona cut and use the weight for a moment there. And you can see that that rectangle frame comes right off. I was just using it as a guide to make sure that I glued my lid properly. So now this piece gets glued on top of our Arizona piece. And we want to use less glue here so it doesn't seep out of the edges onto our stained piece. So now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to very carefully align this with all of the edges. I really want to make sure it's accurate before I push down. We don't want to have any glue seeping out. So I'm going to put some pressure on that, and it does dry pretty quick. This is very much a super glue. So next we use a stain pen. So this isn't just a Sharpie, this is actual stain in a pen. So we stain the edges of the box to give it a nice finished look. All right, so now we have a custom packaging for our ornament. We're gonna stick our ornament inside and look how protected it is. It fits flush inside the box, and you can have a custom engraving. Thank you for watching us create a custom packaging for our Christmas ornament using our AEON Laser Mira 9.